At 2:22 a.m., high above the Red Sea, at an altitude of 25,000 feet, the pilot of an FA-18E Super Hornet looked down toward the objective below. Beneath a thick layer of solid rock, a Houthi military storage site was concealed from view. There was only one possible opening, a narrow ventilation shaft barely wide enough for the precision payload to pass through. He had a single attempt. If the drop missed by just 5 meters, the Houthis would celebrate it as a humiliation for the US Navy. But if the pilot placed it perfectly, the impact would set off a massive chain reaction, unlike anything the Red Sea had seen before. The margin for error was non-existent. Time remaining, 10 seconds. But to understand why the United States had reached this tense moment over the Red Sea, we need to go back 4 weeks, to the mistake that changed everything. First, look at the map. This is the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. In military language, it is known as a choke point. Think of it as the only road leading into a crowded supermarket parking lot on Black Friday. Around 15% of global trade moves through this narrow passage every day. If that route is disrupted, factories slow down, store shelves begin to feel the pressure, and ordinary people eventually notice the impact in their wallets. Controlling this strait is like placing a hand on one of the most important arteries of the world economy. And the group applying that pressure was the Houthis. Do not picture them as a small band of fighters carrying old rifles. The Houthis are an Iran-backed force with a clear strategy: pressure cargo shipping in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden, disrupt global trade, and force Western governments to rethink their support for Israel during the conflict in Gaza. Their equipment may be inexpensive compared to American systems, but it is still highly dangerous. They operate low-cost Shahed-style drones, long-range ballistic systems capable of reaching Israel, and mobile coastal radar units that appear, disappear, and relocate before they can be easily tracked. Against the United States, the Houthis believed they had found the perfect economic formula: asymmetric warfare. The logic was simple: launch a cheap drone worth around $2,000 toward a commercial vessel. To stop it, a U.S. destroyer may have to fire an interceptor worth around $2 million. $2,000 against $2 million. From their point of view, the math favored them. They believed that if the United States was forced to spend enough money defending shipping lanes, Washington would eventually step back. They mocked America's restraint and mistook patience for fear. But they forgot one thing: a barking dog reveals panic. A silent wolf reveals intent. At this point, you may be asking yourself, with all its military power, why did the United States not respond with overwhelming force from the very beginning? The answer was not weakness, it was battlefield reality. Houthi assets rarely stay in one place for long. That was the trap. If the United States reacted too early, the Houthis would lose only the obvious sites: exposed workshops, storage areas, and visible facilities. Meanwhile, the mobile launch teams, drone crews, radar operators, and command units would scatter into mountain hideouts and continue operating. Responding too soon would have been like swinging a hammer at a fly. So, for weeks, while the Houthis celebrated attacks on container ships, American satellites, drones, and signals intelligence platforms quietly watched. Every road they used was studied. Every radar signal was recorded. Every electronic fingerprint was collected. Each time a Houthi radar system came online, U.S. forces marked another coordinate. The Navy was not waiting because it had no plan. It was building the list. And tonight, that list was finally complete. The order came down. No more defense only. It was time to shift into offensive mode. At 2:22 a.m., the night over the Red Sea was split open by a coordinated wave of firepower from 3 directions at once. This was not a random bombardment. It was a carefully timed symphony of advanced military systems. From the surface of the sea, the vertical launch hatches aboard the destroyer USS Carney opened. Moments later, dozens of Tomahawk Block 5 cruise missiles roared into the sky, leaving white trails behind them as they raced toward the mainland. Beneath the ocean surface, an Ohio-class strategic submarine moved in total silence, hidden in the deep like a submerged arsenal. Without warning, it released another wave of Tomahawk cruise systems from below the waterline, adding even more pressure to the already overwhelming strike package. Then, from high above came AGM-158JSM stealth cruise systems launched by B-2 Spirit aircraft. In total, 180 guided systems were racing toward their assigned objectives. The American goal was clear: remove the Houthis' greatest advantage, their ability to move, adapt, and disappear before anyone could respond. The idea sounded simple. The execution was almost unbelievable. How could 180 different systems, launched from different platforms, flying from different distances, arrive at separate targets at the exact same moment? On board the destroyers, powerful computers worked at maximum capacity, calculating every route, every delay, and every adjustment. Some Tomahawks had to stretch their flight paths, circling through the sky to lose time. Others had to push forward at top speed to arrive on schedule. Time remaining, 60 seconds. As the strike package approached Yemeni airspace, something unexpected rolled across the battlefield. An invisible electronic fog. Far offshore, EA-18G, Growler electronic warfare aircraft activated their high-power jamming systems at the same time. They did not enter the danger zone. They stayed at a safe distance and flooded Houthi air defense frequencies with interference. The purpose was simple: blind the network before it could react. If any Houthi radar crew tried to lock onto the incoming Tomahawks, their screens would not show a clear target. They would see only static, confusion, and empty noise. 30 seconds remaining. The American systems moved in like silent shadows protected by an electronic wall. Their targets were not random. They were aimed directly at the eyes, ears, and command structure of the Houthi network. Tomahawks moved toward coastal fire control radar sites and communication towers. JSSM systems pushed deeper, heading for hardened long-range ballistic missile facilities. 10 seconds remaining. Then the sky seemed to fold in on itself. The coordinated strike arrived all at once, with the force of a massive steel wall crashing down in a single instant. This was time on target at its most extreme. Not one objective after another. Not a slow wave. Everything arrived together. Across the Yemeni coastline, fireballs rose almost simultaneously. Coastal radar stations were turned into twisted metal before they could send out a warning. Ammunition storage sites erupted into towering columns of flame that lit up the distant mountains. The ground shook again and again, as if the entire region had been hit by a magnitude 7 quake. The Houthi air defense network was not simply pushed back, it was overwhelmed by speed, pressure, timing, and precision. There was no time to respond, no time to organize, no time to understand what had just happened. But inside that storm of fire and noise, one mission still remained unfinished. And this mission required almost impossible precision. High above the Red Sea at 25,000 feet, an FA-18E Super Hornet continued gliding through the night. While 180 long-range systems were striking wide-area objectives, this pilot had one very specific task. The target was the Houthis' most protected asset, a reinforced ballistic missile facility hidden deep inside a mountain, where ordinary external impact could not reach. For this mission, the aircraft carried two GBU 31V3B precision penetrators. These were not standard munitions. Their hardened alloy casings were designed to push through up to 6 meters of reinforced concrete before activating inside the structure. But strength alone was not enough. The entire mission depended on accuracy. The pilot had to release the payload at the perfect moment, so it would enter the mountain through one narrow ventilation shaft. It was like standing on top of the Empire State Building and trying to drop a coin into a coffee cup sitting far below on the sidewalk. The targeting system locked on. The pilot's finger pressed the release button. 2 tons of steel and precision-guided power separated from the aircraft's wing and began falling through the darkness in complete silence. 10 seconds passed. No one breathed. Then the night was split open by a towering column of flame. The granite mountain trembled violently as if struck by an invisible giant. A powerful shockwave lifted dust and sand hundreds of meters into the air, transforming the small ventilation shaft into a burning crater. What followed was a chain reaction inside the hidden storage network. Within 5 minutes, the underground command facility and the strategic weapons stockpile the Houthis had spent 5 years building were gone. Over the radio, the pilot's calm voice broke through the static. Objective neutralized. That strike was not luck. It was a demonstration of American precision, planning, and technology. For a brief moment, silence covered the battlefield. But it did not last. From several scattered underground positions, the Houthis launched one final desperate response. American destroyer radars detected multiple signals rising fast. One-way drones and low-flying cruise missiles heading toward commercial ships and the U.S. fleet. It looked like a boxer who had already been knocked down, still swinging wildly in a last attempt to save pride. But the U.S. Navy had been waiting for exactly this moment. Inside the Combat Information Center of the USS Carney, the captain did not move. He watched the screen as the incoming drones closed the distance, then gave the order. Hold the vertical launch system, switch to the low-cost option. And with that, the Navy changed the rules of the game. Instead of answering every cheap drone with an expensive interceptor, the ship used a smarter combination of electronic pressure and close-range defensive fire. The ANSLQ 32V6 system, known among sailors as Slick 32, activated at maximum power. But the ship did not launch another missile. It sent out invisible waves of electronic energy, focused directly on the incoming drone formation. Imagine playing an online game, and just as you're about to win, someone suddenly pulls your internet cable. That was the effect. The system overwhelmed the drone's fragile control circuits, disrupted their satellite connection, and confused their navigation sensors. The leading drones began to wobble, drift, and lose direction before dropping into the sea far from their intended path. But some drones were designed to keep flying even without navigation, using preset momentum and basic onboard instructions. For those, the Navy used a heavier answer, the 5-inch Mark 45 naval gun. The fire control system locked onto the remaining targets, but instead of firing standard rounds, the gun loaded specialized airburst shells designed to open in front of the approaching swarm. Sharp flashes erupted in the sky. The shells burst ahead of the drones, creating a fast-moving wall of metal fragments. The remaining Houthi drones slammed into that barrier and broke apart in midair. Wings snapped loose, bodies split open, and the wreckage fell into the sea miles away from the ship. The result was immediate and overwhelming. The Houthis' final wave of 17 drones, missiles, was intercepted in the sky before their operators could even understand where the response was coming from. As dawn slowly rose over the Red Sea, American destroyers continued moving across the water with calm precision, as if nothing extraordinary had happened during the night. But along the Yemeni coast, thick black smoke still climbed from the remains of facilities that had once been among the Houthis' most important military assets. That night, the world saw more than a coordinated strike. It saw a demonstration of modern military strategy where raw power was guided by intelligence, timing, patience, and precision. In the end, the U.S. Navy achieved 2 victories at once. The first was tactical. By using the time-on-target saturation principle, the United States removed the enemy's ability to react in stages. When 180 separate objectives, from radar stations and storage sites to communication hubs and command facilities, were hit almost simultaneously, the Houthis had no time to adapt, relocate, or learn from what was happening. It was not a slow exchange. It was a synchronized takedown of an entire operating network. The second victory was even more important. It was economic. The Houthis had tried to pull the United States into a costly contest, using $2,000 drones to force the launch of $2 million interceptors. But that plan did not work. The United States did not simply chase every drone. It focused on the expensive and difficult-to-replace systems behind the attacks. Radars, command links, storage areas, launch infrastructure, and communication networks. And when the Houthis attempted a response, the U.S. Navy answered with electronic warfare and lower-cost naval firepower, breaking the incoming wave without falling into the financial trap. The message to any force that challenges freedom of navigation is simple. Do not confuse patience with weakness. For 4 weeks, the U.S. Navy watched in silence. Not because it was afraid of inexpensive drones or mobile launchers, but because it was studying patterns, collecting signals, mapping routes, and waiting for the moment when one response could change the entire battlefield. Silence was not hesitation. Silence was preparation. And when the decision finally came, the response was not emotional. It was calculated, coordinated, and precise. The Red Sea shipping lane was protected. The consequences of provocation became clear. Now the question is this: will the Houthis learn from what happened, or will they continue down the same dangerous path? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and do not forget to like and subscribe for more exclusive military analysis from Navy Vector.